Hey guys, so this is the dedicated Facebook Live session for all about the place command. So I wanted to start doing some things like this because there's a lot of little topics that aren't so little. And I talk about a lot of things, and it's kind of hard sometimes to parse out what's the really important stuff and what is still important but not as super critical to address right off the bat with your dog. Because when you first start with a dog and you start to learn about trying to fix some problem behaviors, it can be really overwhelming. It's like, okay, well, cool, you have awesome dogs, I have a shitty dog. Where do I start? So this is going to be about the place command. It's going to be all about the place command, what it is, why we use it, what that looks like in daily life, and kind of how to teach it. I can't really do a whole lot on how to teach it because I'm just talking, but I can kind of talk you through it, and there's a lot of videos online about that, so you can look that up as well. So first live session about one of these topics, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. If there's any other topics that you would like me to talk about, I am going to do one of these on the e-collar. So e-collar training is as complete as I possibly can. Again, not working an actual dog, but talking about it, talking about the important parts of e-collar training. So if you have any other topics that you'd be interested in hearing me talk about, please let me know. I'm going to do these hopefully on a weekly basis if I have enough content suggested to me. So we'll get started. So the place command is one of the most important things you can teach your dog, and it's one of my top 5. I have a document on my website called The Big 5 on my training resources page, and those are the 5... Skylar. She's supposed to be in place command. So the Big 5 are the 5 top commands or skills that all dogs should have, and it's a really good place to start when you have a dog that's out of control and you don't know where to start. So if you kind of look at the Big 5 and you start working toward those 5 things are going to give you, if you master those 5 things, you're going to have an awesome dog. So what is the place command? So the place command is one of the Big 5. Place means, and you can call it whatever you want. The place command means go to this predetermined object and stay there until I tell you something else to do or release you to do what you want. So usually you use a dog bed, obviously. But you don't have to. It can be a rug on the floor. It can be a rock out in public. It can be a big rock, okay. A park bench. It can be any predetermined or well-defined object. They need to get on it. They need to stay on it. And they need to be calm while on place. So you can work the body, but you can't necessarily address the mind directly. But if you work on keeping the dog's body there, they're going to kind of run out of options and tend to relax. So, why do we use the place command? Why is it important? So, it is a great management tool. There's Felix on place. Sorry, my phone's plugged in, so I don't really... I'll just unplug it. There is Pip. There's Felix. And those are my 2 over there with all the clutter. And Skylar licking herself. That's nice. This is live, folks. So that's what place command looks like. That's what it is. So why do we use it? So it's a great management tool when you get a new dog or when you have a young dog or you have a dog that has some behavioral problems, that gets into the trash, that bugs you when you're eating dinner. All of those things is a great management tool that will keep your dog out of the way, keep your dog from getting into things. And it's wonderful for keeping them contained and preventing them from making bad decisions and while you're working on some other things. So if you're working on, for example, over-arousal as a general rule, where your dog is super overexcited all the time, the place command is a great place to start. Because it prevents your dog from exhibiting those bad behaviors while you're working on creating a new default behavior. So, for example, I'm going to use a lot of examples in this discussion. So, for example, Sky. I just showed you Sky. She's the one that was licking herself. She's a very classy lady. When I first got her, she was about a year old-ish. And she had a lot of overexcitement and anxiety problems. So if I gave her the run of the house, she would literally pick something up to carry and just carry it around the house and whine the whole time because she felt like she needed to be doing something. And that's super common. So like if your dog just can't settle in the house, the place command is awesome because it teaches them to start to be calm kind of on command. So that's kind of the next benefit too. So like I said, you can't directly address mindset behaviors, but you can indirectly address them. So with the place command, with a dog that is overexcited all the time, if you enforce and require that they stay on this one spot, they're going to run out of options of things to do other than to relax. So if you practice that pretty often, it will become kind of a patterned behavior so that when they are on place, they automatically just kind of get into the habit of just chilling out. And if a dog doesn't know how to chill out on their own, the place command can be awesome for teaching them how to chill out on their own. So I have notes here, so forgive me. So it's also great for teaching impulse control. So when a dog is on place, they can't get up. They can get up, they can stand. If you want to let them stand, that's fine. But they can't leave that dog bed, that cot, that park bench, that whatever you have them placed on, no matter what happens. So that's great for like if you have a delivery where you have to leave the front door open all the time for a while, not all the time, but for a while. Like for example, when I had my kitchen cabinets delivered, my front door had to be open for 20 minutes. And I could have put the dogs away and that would have been fine. Like I could have put them in another room. I could have put them in the crates. That's no big deal. But I took the opportunity to have them on place to work on some impulse control because the front door is wide open. There's random people walking in and out of my house and they're expected to stay put. And that's awesome for working on impulse control. So with that example, it wouldn't have mattered if they had gotten up and run out of my house because I live in the country and they're off-leash trained. So in perspective, it wouldn't have mattered if they would have gotten up and run out the door. But I used it as a training opportunity to work on some impulse control, and place command is awesome for that. And it's also really great for kind of the Nothing in Life is Free, Nothing in Life is Free kind of training program that I typically recommend. So typically when you're dealing with a behavioral problem in the home, the thing that I recommend is to implement a lot of structure. So you take all of the dog's freedom away and you have them earn that freedom back. So what that would look like is they don't have any free roaming in the house. They're either in their crate or on their dog bed. And this isn't forever, and we'll talk about that. But it's great as part of that training program where your main intent is to become super important to the dog so that your requests, your commands, your corrections become a lot more meaningful to the dog. So the place command is great for acting part of that whole training program. So let's see here. Yeah, so what does that look like on a daily basis in your actual home? So there's kind of two different phases here. And I'm going to talk about the training phase and the maintenance or the management phase. So in the training phase, like I said, what I recommend people do is to take all the freedom away from the dog and have them earn that freedom back. So what that would look like is if the dog is in the house, they are in their crate or they are on place. There's no free roaming in the house. And that's really what pertains mostly to the place command in this conversation. There's other stuff too, like no unearned affection, they can't get up on the furniture, and all of those things. But for this conversation, the place command is awesome for that. So that's kind of what it would look like in the training phase, where your dog, no matter what you're doing, is either on place or in their crate, unless you are actively working with the dog. So that's the training phase. Again, that's not forever. That's just until you get some of the behavioral problems under control and you become important to the dog, because that's the whole intent of this whole training program, is to become very important to the dog so that when you issue a request, a command, a correction, whatever, it's a lot more meaningful to the dog because you're important. You're a figure of authority to the dog now because you are the source of all things good. You are the source of all that dog's freedom. And you just become a very important person to that dog. So that's kind of the training phase. But again, that's not forever. When you get to the maintenance phase, when the dog has learned the correct behavior, and that correct behavior is the default behavior. So for example, with Sky, like I said, when I got her, her default behavior would be to just manically walk around and find something to carry. She's a retriever, so that's instinct, but anxiety is what drives her to actually do that, to actually act on that instinct in that way. So her default behavior was something that I didn't want, and it was something that was not healthy for her. Because if you let your dog exist in this mind space where they're just 100 miles an hour and anxious and amped up all the time, that's not healthy for them. It's just like being super anxious in a human is not healthy for us either. It's just not, it's not fun, and it's just not healthy. So that default behavior is something that I didn't want. What I wanted her to do is to just relax in the house. If there's nothing else to do, don't worry about it. Just relax, chill out. It's fine. So by using the place command, she has learned to be calm in the house, and that is her new default behavior. So when you get to that stage, you don't have to rely on the place command to elicit that calm default behavior. So I have the dogs on place right now, to make a point, essentially, because I'm doing something. I can't be watching all the dogs. But Felix and Pip Pip is absolutely still in the training phase where he doesn't have any freedom in the house, because if he did, he would be getting in the trash and counter surfing. I've seen him do that a couple times when I wasn't watching him and he snuck off place. But he has some very bad default behaviors. So he's still in the training phase, but all the other dogs are in the maintenance phase, where I can send them to place as needed. So if they were to be getting too rowdy in the house, I don't allow any rough play in the house. I don't really allow any play in the house. I have a really small house and I have a lot of dogs here. So I have a very low threshold for the shit that I tolerate in my house. So if they start to play too rough and they're not listening to me when I tell them to cut it out, I'll just send them to place. And it's not a punishment at all. It's just, I can't deal with you right now. I'm going to go put you on place and not have to deal with you. So you can do that. You can put the dog on place if you're eating dinner. And again, this is in the maintenance phase, when you've already worked through the training phase to where the good behavior is the default behavior, and you've already become really important to the dog. And that's a really important distinction. So in the maintenance phase, you can send them there. You can send them to place when you need them to not be underfoot, to not be bugging you for food if you're eating. If you have people come over, you can have them on place. It's just a good tool to have in your toolbox for when or if you need them to not be right there with you. So you can either put them in a crate, you can put them on place. I like to have my dogs on place when I have people over, because the dogs can still be involved. They can still be a part of what's going on, but they're not underfoot. They're not in the way. They're just here and they're experiencing everything, but they can't be in the middle of everything. Sometimes I'll let them off place and they'll just hang out with us, but it really depends on the situation. Felix is not my dog. I don't let him free roam here. He is able to free roam at home, obviously, but he doesn't get a whole lot of free roaming here just because he's not my dog. He's not really used to free roaming and interacting with other dogs, just kind of on a very casual basis. Not that I don't trust him, but I don't trust him just because he's not my dog. He's not used to living here with my two dogs. It's just easier if he just hangs out on place. And because he's been through the training phase and he knows what place means, he can be on place and be fine. But essentially, I don't want to use place as a doggy jail. So a lot of people will see a dog in the training phase where the dog is on place a lot. So like when my dogs were kind of in the training phase and I would work from home, they would be on place all day. So I'd get up, I'd let them out, I'd feed them breakfast. That's a dangerous word around here. Normally they get all excited with that word. I feed them their food, and then they go to place, or in whatever order that is. But they go to place for the morning, and then I eat lunch, I let them out for a potty break, I come back in, they go back to place. All day they're on place. That's a little on the extreme side. That's very doable because the dog's just going to be hanging out and sleeping all day anyway. But I don't look at it as a doggy jail. And once the dog has kind of completed the training phase and you've addressed all their behavioral problems, and you don't have any overexcitement issues in the home, you can have them earn back some free roaming. So with Sky, she got a little bit of free roaming and then she would start to get a little amped up and I'd just send her back to place. And then a little bit later, I'd let her off place and she'd hang out for a little bit and then start to get amped up and I'd send her back to place. So it's a gradual process of earning their free roaming, earning their freedom. But once you do that, they can just hang out. Like, if I wasn't doing this right now, my two dogs would not be on place. They would be hanging out with me. They would probably, potentially, still be over there sleeping, but not because I asked them to stay there, just because that's where their beds are and it's comfy for them. But I don't see it as a doggy jail. I don't like to have constant place command be the end goal. I want my dogs to be able to function in my house. I don't want to have to contain them or confine them to a bed or a cot or whatever for them to be able to exist in my home. I want them to learn how to be calm in my home. But the first step to do that, if the dog doesn't know how to be calm and chill, is the place command. So great stuff. The place command can be very, very beneficial, but it's not the end goal to have your dog on place all the time. You want them to be able to function calmly in your house, in your home. So place command can help you get there. So how do you teach it? Like I said in the beginning, I can't really go into a ton of detail and show you a lot because I'm not actively working a dog. But essentially, what you can do is, I really like using these elevated cots. He has an extra bed because he's a floofy butt. But I really like these elevated cots They are great for teaching the dog the place command. Something about the elevated cot makes it easier for them to grasp, because for whatever reason, it's a separate thing in their mind because they have to actively like step up on it rather than just walk on it like a dog bed. So you pair it with the word. You can use whatever word you want. Felix's word is bed. That's what his owner taught him, which is fine. My dogs, their command is pork it. I don't know why I picked that when I started training Abe that. Well, okay, so I was in an obedience class at the time, and we were learning place, and everybody else was calling it place. And I'm just like, I don't want to call it the same damn thing that everybody else calls it. So I had to be a little contrarian, and I called it something different, and I called it park it. So park your butt, essentially, park it. So that's their word. Pip, I just taught him the word place, because he's not my dog, he's not staying here. So that would be the word that would be the most easily transferred to a new home, because it is the place command. So anyway, so you pair it with whatever word you want to use as you're guiding the dog onto the bed or the cot or whatever. And as soon as that dog gets forepaws on that bed or cot or whatever, you mark it. So we've talked about marker words. Marker words are fantastic and absolutely necessary to make your lives easier. So you can use yes, you can use good, you can use a clicker, it doesn't matter. But as soon as forepaws hit that bed, you mark. And what, Alexa? OMG Cassie, what is that supposed to mean? Come on now. Anyway, so as soon as those forepaws hit that bed, you mark it and you reward. And then you wait a second or two and you give them the release command, they get off the bed, and you repeat it. Repeat, 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 until you can start to kind of send them to the bed from a couple steps away. So you're not giving them as much leash guidance. So you kind of take away some of that leash guidance and rely more and more on the command, the verbal command. And then once they really understand what the command means, you can start working on duration. So when they get on the bed, you don't mark it right away. You wait a couple seconds, you mark it, reward it, release them. And you build up duration. So once the dog is super confident with place and they're starting to really stick around a lot longer, you've built in the duration, you can start enforcing the command. So when they are 100% an understanding of what it means, only then can you start correcting. Oh, I love park it. That's all classy. Thanks, Alexa. So I thought it was classy too. So only when the dog really 100% understands what you're asking, only then you can start enforcing that they keep that command, and you can kind of correct for not maintaining the command. So when the dog fully understands what you're asking them to do, if they break command, you just mark it with a no, and you put them right back on. And in the beginning, you don't need to give them a leash pop. You don't need to give them any big correction. You just mark it with your no, put them back on. Repeat, 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 repeat. And then when you are 1000% positive that they fully understand what you're asking them to do, then you can add a correction like a leash pop or, leash pop. I would do a leash pop for breaking command. So they break command, they get off place, you go no, walk up to the dog, give them a little leash pop, put them back on. So that's how you really start to enforce them maintaining the command. So I think that about covers most of the place command. I haven't gotten any questions except for Alexa, so thank you, Alexa, for the commentary. So with the elevated bed, I don't keep them on the elevated beds. I can transfer them to a dog bed or something that's more comfortable. Some dogs really like the elevated beds, and in which case they can keep it. I don't care. But like Pip, here. He has an additional cushion, a little pillow. Oh, look at the stretch. He has a pillow on top of the elevated bed because he's a floofy butt, and he's picky. So for whatever reason, well, obviously that's going to be more comfortable than an elevated cot, but he was having trouble with the relaxation part of place. He would just like fidget a lot and just wasn't really getting all that comfy and relaxed. So I put an additional dog bed on top, and he's like, oh, okay, this is great. This is awesome. Thank you. And now he's actually like relaxing on place. So sometimes you have to make adjustments to help them succeed. So there's that. And then he's fairly solid on place now. So I could just take away the elevated bed and leave the cushion, the dog bed on there. But I'm not going to do that too quickly. I don't like to rush into those big changes because dogs don't generalize well. Felix is dreaming over there. So I think that about covers it. If anybody has any questions, please let me know. And if you have any suggestions on any other topics that you'd like me to dedicate a Facebook Live session to, please let me know that as well. And thanks for tuning in, and let me know if you have any questions. Doodles.